time out, maybe even when a fight's announced. So they announced Fabio Wardley and Jarrell Miller at the weekend to them to battle in June in Portman Road at Ipswich Town. And I mean, I know both of them very well. I spent a lot of time with Fabio and Jarrell Miller. I go way back with. So already you've done preparation in a way, because you understand their careers and where they are and a bit about their personalities. But during the sort of next few weeks, it will be a case of maybe speaking to them on the phone, speaking to their trainers, talking to the promoter, other people about the fight within the industry. And then it's just sort of preparing it, which might be looking for all the rankings, the statistics, going back over their boxing records, amateur, pro, their lives outside of boxing. So you sort of build up a picture not only of them as a fighter, but them as a human being. And also, boxing's all about levels. So you look at a fight, and if it's very high level, you're going to not put more preparation in, but there's obviously more into it. It's not like if you're having your fourth or fifth fight. Delicious already turned professional at the weekend. Obviously, a lot of attention on him, but it's not his British title fight. It's not his world title fight. So you've got to find ways to go with it. You can't sort of put everything into an early 4-rounder and leave nothing for when they fight for a really meaningful shot. But yeah, something like that. I'd prepare long and hard, and then on the week you tend to be around the press conferences or the weigh-ins, and I always find you get little nuggets. What are they having for their pre-fight meal, or how have they made the weight, or are they struggling a little bit? Are they doing final workouts in the gym? How do they spend their day on fight day with the nerves and building up to it? All of those things. Different fighters have different idiosyncrasies and ways that they prepare. So it's getting all of that. And look, when the fight happens, I used to say this to the guys at Sky. We can do all the build-up and do the gloves are off and the countdowns and everything and put everything into it. But when that bell goes, it's up to the fighters. That's out of your control. So they could fight. It could end in a round. It could be a 12-round war. It could be a fairly dull fight. It could be anything. So you've got to be prepared to bring sort of fun, cool information out at different times during the fight. Because you remember, you are entertaining. Boxing is a business to entertain, and that's why certain fighters get criticized maybe if they don't get the knockout, and it's not fair. There may be a lot of pressure on them, they may have an injury, there may be lots of reasons, but it is an entertainment business, and fundamentally the promoters are looking for that. We call what's in front of us. We have to be totally unbiased, totally neutral. When we pick up the mic, it doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't matter whether you spend more time with one or more time with the other, or like that one style or that one style. You have to be totally neutral. That's really important. And the commentators I've had over the years, Jim Watt, Glenn McCrory, Matt Macklin, Paulie Malignaggi, Carl Froch, Tony Bellew, now Darren Barker, Barry Jones, everybody, and more. Michaela Mayer's a very good co-commentator, Tasha Jonas. We have to call it as we see it. That's the key, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing a professional job. So that job starts early, and it is a busy run-up. So when you pick up the mic, you shouldn't really have to look at the notes because it's there, and you have to pick out the information as and when you need it. And sometimes you don't need that information because the fight's done and dusted like that. So you have to react to what's going on, but you've got that behind us. And I'm a sort of all-in type person, Sean. I'm like, when I commit myself to something, I want to do it. And sometimes, you're on the road for a few days and it's tough and you don't get a lot of sleep. And I get home and I see the kids, and then it's off to the next one. This industry is hard. Television and sport. It's the weekend working, the holidays, Easter Sunday, we've got a fight. Often when everyone's at home resting or having nice meals and eating Easter eggs, you're out and you're providing that entertainment in a way, I guess, for the people at home. So that can be hard, that balance. But I always say I've never worked a day in my life. Yes, I have worked hard, very hard. But what I mean by that is that I enjoy 95% of what I do, and I've wanted to do it since I was a little boy. And I feel very, very blessed and lucky that I have done it, and I never take it for granted. So I'll be preparing for the next fight just as diligently as I prepared for one 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Amazing. People don't realize how much of a sort of boxing historian you've got to be, because ultimately they're coming for you for the guidance of who is this guy if they've never seen him before? What is their amateur pedigree? You know, because sometimes you can't even Google and find that stuff out. So the fact that you speak to trainers and camps and find that information, I never ever even thought of that process. So thank you for sharing that. A few things you said there, Adam. You mentioned Miller, and you also mentioned boxing is an entertainment industry. Some people do think, well, it's one of my favorites. It's my favorite. I love the heavyweight division, middleweight division. Ever since it was the thing that I did with my dad, the thing that we had in common. Even though we don't really talk that much, but when it comes to boxing, we'll have a beer together, you know, and watch it. And then who's gonna win? We'll share notes. It's just that kind of thing that brings us together. But for some people, they feel that boxing is a brutal sport, you know, punching a man's head senseless, causing like, you know, brain damage and things like that. And I suppose that's not the point I'm trying to get to, but you mentioned like Miller. Miller was caught a few years ago for drug cheating. I think they said Benn, you know, was cleared. But what's your opinion if somebody is caught with you know, PEDs in their system? Should they be allowed to box again with the environment? You see it firsthand in front of you in the ring. Is that something that somebody's made a mistake? Food's been contaminated? Or, you know, should there be one glove fits all?
Sean, let's get this absolutely straight. There is no place in boxing for drugs. There is no place in boxing for drug cheats. Absolutely not, because it is a very dangerous sport. You look at athletics and other sports that have had big problems with drugs, and the thing with boxing, as you said, you know, you're hitting each other. It's hard enough as it is, and there will always be critics out there for boxing. I have, you know, my stepmom's not the biggest boxing fan, but I have long chats with her and say that there are so many people that have been saved because of boxing. The discipline, the structure, taking kids off the streets who are going the wrong way and giving them hope. Even Lily Winch the other night at the York or Bethnal Green was having all sorts of problems at school. She didn't fit in, and she found the boxing gym, and she's had a total transformation in life. So, and there's huge amounts of stories around the world, in Mexico, America, Mexico, Puerto Rico, all the places that I've traveled. I did a lot of, in the early Sky days, I did a lot of reporting around some very, very difficult areas of the world. And, you know, boxing in many ways has saved huge amounts of young kids, wayward kids, and it's taught them the way. And they don't even have to become fighters. It's just the manner of going to a gym, the camaraderie, the teamwork, the sustained sort of concentration and focus on something, and the enjoyment, and obviously the physical and mental well-being. So drugs is very difficult. It's a grey area. We know that there's been people that have failed drugs tests a lot over the years, and it's never nice to hear. The trouble is, I guess you never really get the full truth. It's very hard. So the testing is expensive. Sometimes it's just urine testing. Sometimes it's blood, VADA. It depends sort of what level the event, the promoters, the managers, the fighters go to for testing. And it should, in my opinion, they should be thoroughly tested throughout. Andy Murray used to say to me, because he's a big boxing fan, and he and I and Johnny Nelson got very close for a while, and he loved talking boxing. And he used to say it was awful because in tennis they do random testing, and he said people complain that they're always turning up, whatever. He said, I never complain because I know how important it is, and I think about boxers because, you know, boxers are tennis players. We're just hitting the ball hard at each other, right? It's a 101. There's a lot of similarities, but boxers are, you know, every time they get in the ring, you know, their lives are on the line. They have to protect themselves. They have to, you know, they have to. Ultimately, it's a skilled sport, but ultimately, you know, you've got to hit the other guy to win the fight, right? So it's so dangerous. So there's no place for drugs. When fighters fail drugs tests, it's not up to me. It's not up to the promoter. It's not up to the fighter what the punishment is. It's up to the commission or the license regulator. You know, whoever, the British board here, or the difference with the boards in the world. You know, there's lots of different states in America, and people have a different sort of take on it. Some are banned for a period of time. Some are banned for a long period. And then fighters always claim innocence, right? They'll always say, oh, they got into my system via anything. Eggs, as we've seen
Contaminated
recently.
steak.
Wild boar. We've had all sorts, haven't we? And there's been a lot of fighters that have been